A simple woman stepped into the ring and they laughed, said she looked like someone's aunt wandered in by mistake, said her opponent should be arrested for what was about to happen. No one knew her name, only that she trained. The dead coach's kid wore thrifted gear and hadn't thrown a punch in public since before the gym got Wi-Fi. But when the heavyweight swung, missed, swung again, missed, again, and she dropped him with one check hook so clean it looked like mercy. No one asked who she was anymore. They just watched her walk back to the corner, adjust her wrist wrap, and sit down, like she hadn't just reminded them what legacy looks like. Before all that, she was just another quiet shape moving through the background of Southbridge Boxing Hall. The gym was all concrete and mirrors, sharp voices bouncing between heavy bags and ring bells. Callie's presence didn't cut through it. It bent it, softening the air, without asking. Fighters rarely noticed the quiet ones. She wore a sun-faded hoodie, old joggers, and hand wraps stained with resin and time. Her hair was pulled low and tied with a frayed lace. She carried no clipboard and gave no pep talks. Most assumed she was part of the maintenance crew. Callie had once been one of Southbridge's most promising pros. 10 fights, 10 wins, 3 by knockout, all under the watch of coach Darnell Cruz. She vanished after her 10th bout and returned without explanation the day after Darnell's funeral. Since then, she kept to the edges. She never talked about the past, not even when people whispered about it 2 feet away. What mattered now was Mason. Darnell's son had fast hands and restless eyes and never quite knew what to do with either. At 19, Mason was gifted but impatient. His name got him attention before his jab earned respect. He didn't like being corrected, especially not by someone who refused to explain herself. Callie let the resentment pass through her like wind. Every day she wrapped his wrists with the same care she once gave his father. She double-checked the alignment, smoothed the tape, and said nothing unless something was wrong. He never thanked her. She never asked him to. During sparring, Callie watched from just inside the ring skirt. When his hips collapsed, she tapped her own thigh. When his guard wavered, she lifted 2 fingers. If he noticed, he didn't show it. There was a photo high on the gym wall, long since half covered by a supplement banner. It showed Callie in gloves and bruises standing beside Darnell after a fight. No one had dusted it in years. Few realized she was in it at all. Her gym bag was old military canvas, faded green, stitched with her initials. Inside was one towel, white coarse, embroidered with D. Cruz in blue thread. She never used it, only folded it clean and packed it first. Mason had seen it once and said nothing. The other coaches barely hid their smirks. Vince called her Cruz's shrinekeeper. The rest just referred to her as her, like she was a piece of furniture in a room full of men who punched things. She never responded. The gym had changed since she left. Cameras now hung above the rings, capturing every slip and miss for the live stream. Southbridge had become louder, shinier, full of people chasing clicks. Callie stayed invisible by choice. She didn't chase the camera and never gave the clip editors anything to use. But when she entered the room, the air shifted slightly. Most didn't know why. She trained Mason without fanfare. Footwork drills and silence mitt work with minimal praise. He often ignored her cues and tried to impress the room instead. She let him burn through it. He was Darnell's son, and the pressure of that weighed more than the gloves. He hated feeling like a shadow and refused to ask what his father might have done. Callie never told him. She just watched. Sometimes after hours when the gym was empty, Callie stayed. She moved the bag a few inches off center, stepped into the space like it was sacred, and threw silent combinations. Her rhythm never changed. The light above the 3rd ring flickered overhead. Her shoes were soft against the canvas, her breath even. No music played. No one filmed. She didn't need to be seen. She needed to remember. Not the fame, not the belt, just the promise. The one Darnell asked of her when he knew he wouldn't be there to finish the work himself. It started with a right hook that landed flat. Mason dropped his gloves and shook his head, sweat flicking from his hair like punctuation. "You keep telling me to pull back, but you don't get it," he said loud enough for the others to hear. "You don't fight anymore, coach. Maybe you forgot what it's like to take real hits." Callie didn't answer. She stood beside the ring, arms folded, eyes steady. Mason leaned on the ropes and stared down at her like he was trying to prove something. She just tilted her head slightly, the same way Darnell used to when someone was about to say something they'd regret. Coach Vince stood by the water cooler watching the exchange with a smirk. He was broad-chested, high-voiced, and always too eager to laugh at someone else's expense. "Hey," he said, raising his voice to the room. "Why don't we let the legend show us how it's done?" A few heads turned. Vince kept going louder now. "Saturday show match," he said. "Callie steps in for a skills demo. Not against Mason. Let's make it interesting." Callie's eyes narrowed, but she didn't move. Vince smiled, wider teeth bright under the fluorescent light. "Tyson Wade, our in-house beast. Let the kids see how real pros do it." Tyson was 6'5", 230, and barely fit through the ring ropes without ducking. His sparring partners usually lasted one round too if they knew how to move. On live stream, he was a star, brutal knockouts, clipped reactions, always tagged with flame emojis and the word savage. Vince raised his eyebrows toward Mason. "Come on, you think she can take him?" Mason shrugged like it didn't matter. But something in his jaw tightened. Callie looked at Vince, then at Mason, then back at the gym. The floor beneath her feet was pocked with tape scars and water stains. The ring smelled like canvas and old adrenaline. She said nothing. Vince slapped a clipboard against the table. "It's just for fun," he said. 10 grand in views easy. You're already here. Might as well teach." The gym's Friday crowd had begun to arrive, early fighters warming up, camera crews setting tripods, the echo of gloves against pads filling the space. Someone wrote her name on the whiteboard in dry erase red: Coach Callie versus Tyson Wade. Underneath it, someone added a question mark. Mason didn't look at her. He sat on the bench near the back wall, wrapping his own hands in uneven tape. A camera crew passed behind him, adjusting the lens to frame the ring. He didn't stop them. Callie unzipped her bag and folded the D-Cruz towel with slow, practiced hands. She laid it beside her wraps and touched the edge once like it was something sacred. A few of the younger fighters watched with puzzled amusement. None of them offered to help. Vince walked over, his voice dipped just low enough. "We both know you won't say no," he said. "Not with the cameras up. Not with his name on the wall." She looked up at him with a flat expression. "Just make sure the mics are working," she said. "Wouldn't want anyone to miss it." Above the ring, the overhead lights flickered once, then steadied. A ring assistant cleaned the ropes with a damp rag while the camera operator adjusted his angle. One fighter whispered, "Is this real?" Another answered, "It's a mismatch. That's why they want it." In the far corner, the old photo of Darnell and Callie hung behind a stack of folded chairs. Dust lined the frame, and someone had written a quote across it months ago. In permanent marker, "Respect is earned in silence." No one had erased it. No one had looked at it twice. The live stream prep rolled into motion. Comments began to populate the screen even before the match started. "Mismatch incoming. Is this charity or cruelty? Let's go, Tyson." The moderators didn't delete any of it. Mason leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. He glanced once toward the ring, then back to his wraps. When someone nudged him and said, "That your coach up there?" he didn't respond. Callie stepped into the back corridor, unwrapped her hoodie, and stretched her arms in silence. Her trunks were plain black, worn down to the threads. She wrapped her wrists herself slowly, like she had all the time in the world. The towel stayed folded on top of her bag. The gym was buzzing now, but her space remained still. A voice on the PA called the match order. The camera light turned red. Southbridge's live stream count passed 10,000. Vince grinned from the edge of the mat. "Let the people see what legacy really looks like," he said. His voice dripped with sweetness, but the malice was sharp underneath. Callie didn't answer. She stepped toward the ring, chin-level gloves loose in her hand. No warm-up, no anthem. Just a soft exhale through the nose and the echo of sneakers on concrete. The lights dimmed just enough for the ring to shine brighter than the room. Tyson Wade stood inside, already shadowboxing under the main camera like it was a championship bout. His arms pumped slow and wide, more for show than for speed. His gloves gleamed with gold foil tape, and his trunks were stitched with his initials in a flame design no one missed. He paced the ropes like a man about to feast. The crowd clapped along, rhythmic and loud, each footstep booming against the wood floor. The live stream feed flooded with "Let's go" Tyson comments and fire emojis. One commentator leaned into his mic and said, "We've got ourselves a mismatch tonight, folks." Callie stepped out from the hallway like a substitute teacher walking into a nightclub. No theme music, no fanfare, just her shoes scuffing softly against the mat. Her trunks were black and silent. Her tape wasn't stylized, just wrapped tight around wrists that had done this before. She carried her mouthguard in one hand and her folded towel in the other. For a moment, no one noticed. Then the camera found her. A few scattered whistles hit the airlight and cutting. "She's tiny," someone muttered from the bench seats. Did they pull her from the desk? Callie set her towel in the corner, brushed it once against the post, then turned. The ropes barely bent when she slipped between them. She moved without effort. The gym buzzed louder, half curiosity, half glee. Tyson smirked as he leaned against the opposite corner, shaking out his arms like a man waiting on a taxi. He turned to his trainer and said something the cameras didn't catch. They both laughed. One of the live stream commentators chuckled under his breath. "What's this, a promo for Charity Month?" His co-host added. "She might be good at form drills, but this isn't the bag room." Callie stood still in the center, not moving yet. Her face showed no tension, just focus. She rolled her neck once and flexed her wrists in the tape. Mason stood against the far wall, arms crossed tight. He wasn't laughing, but he wasn't intervening either. He watched like someone trying to unmake a mistake before it started. A ring assistant stepped between the fighters and gave the rules no one would follow. Tyson bounced in place, throwing a light uppercut with a grin. Callie stayed silent, already chewing her guard in place, already measuring the canvas with her eyes. She stepped back into her corner without show. She adjusted the angle of the stool but didn't sit. She tapped the top rope once with her glove, then once more, then settled into her stance, knees, soft spine, straight chin down. Tyson slapped his gloves together loud enough for the mic to pick up. The bell rang. He charged. Callie didn't flinch. She slid one foot back, pivoted her shoulders, and watched him come. His first jab missed by 2 inches. The crowd roared like it landed. The camera zoomed in close to Tyson's chest, blocking her face from view. His second shot came harder, a left hook thrown wide and high. She ducked low and stepped outside it clean. Tyson grinned. She didn't blink. The gym's volume climbed higher, drowning out the sound of gloves on canvas. One kid near the ring shouted, "Hit her already." Another called out, "Dance class ends at 8. Callie didn't respond. She wasn't dancing. She was watching. She shifted her weight with small, exact movements, barely lifting her feet. Her breathing stayed quiet. Her elbows locked close. When Tyson circled left, she followed without hesitation. He threw another right. She slipped inside it. Not fast, just correct. Her eyes stayed level, the kind of stare that measured distance like a surveyor, not a fighter. She didn't counter. Not yet. The commentators began to quiet down. One cleared his throat. The other hesitated before saying, "Well, she's..." making him miss at least. The live stream showed a split-screen Tyson glistening with power throwing haymakers. Callie barely visible, all economy and air. Someone typed in all caps, "Is she for real?" Tyson dropped low and came in with a heavy body shot. Callie stepped back once, let the punch cut short in space. She let the miss hang there unanswered. She brushed her back foot against the ropes, glanced once toward the far wall. The old photo of her and Darnell was just barely visible behind the glare. She let her gaze land there for a single breath, then turned her focus back to the man trying to break her. Tyson feinted with a right cross and yelled something meant to intimidate. She didn't even twitch. The camera pulled back slowly wide enough to catch both bodies in full frame. Tyson's muscles looked like they had swallowed the light. Callie looked like a chalk drawing in motion. The audience began to shift. Less laughter now. More phones held still. Mason stepped forward once, just one step, then stopped. Tyson launched a wide hook, his loudest, ugliest one yet. Callie dipped under it with a half step inside and returned to center. Her shoulders never stopped moving. She tapped her wrist wrap once. No one else saw it, but Mason did. The round neared its final minute. Tyson was breathing harder now, arms tense from throwing into nothing. Callie hadn't landed a single punch. She hadn't needed to. She stepped sideways, aligned her feet, and held still. Her gloves hovered. Her body moved only when the man across from her did. Her silence was louder than the ring. She wasn't here to win. She wasn't here to survive. She was here to teach. And they hadn't learned it yet. Tyson came forward again, leading with a heavy left that cut the air like a warning. Callie slipped inside it without breaking rhythm, just a quiet half step and a turn of her shoulder. The crowd roared as if he'd landed, but the glove hit nothing. He growled and threw the right slower, wider, full of weight and frustration. She ducked beneath it like the movement had already been written. Her foot slid diagonally. Her hips turned. The check hook landed. No twist of rage, no follow-up, just a clean arc across his jaw. Tyson's body turned with the force, his knees wobbling like someone had pressed pause on the frame. He staggered left, right then forward. His legs buckled and tried to correct themselves. They didn't. The sound in the gym fractured. The shouting cracked. The live stream's chat stream skipped 2 lines behind, unable to keep pace. Tyson didn't drop like a man hit hard. He dropped like a man whose center had been undone. The punch didn't hurt. It exposed him. Callie didn't blink. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't look at Mason. She stepped back once, measured the canvas, then turned toward her corner. She pulled the towel from the post and laid it over her shoulder with care, then tightened the tape on her left wrist, then adjusted her glove. Tyson tried to stand. His arms reached for the ropes like they used to listen. They didn't. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The ref hesitated at first, unsure whether this was real or a delayed act. Then he signaled it over. No one cheered. The audience stared at the ring like something had gone wrong. But nothing had gone wrong. It had gone exactly as it was meant to. Callie stood still by the rope's towel, draped loose, her hands at her sides. The lights didn't flash. The camera didn't zoom in. For once, the room gave her what she had always carried: silence. Mason's face cracked. Not fear, not pride. Something slower. Like recognition arriving late to a room it used to know. His arms dropped from his chest. His shoulders fell forward just slightly. His mouth was half open. The fight had ended, but he hadn't moved. The ring looked bigger now, like it was built to hold only her. Tyson rolled to his side and stayed there. The med team wasn't rushing. One coach in the corner whispered something, but no one replied. Someone in the front row lowered their phone without saving the video. The feed kept running. The counter rose. The comment box didn't. Callie's face didn't change. Her breathing didn't speed up. Her gloves hung at her sides. She moved only when she needed to. She turned her head slowly to glance at the far wall. The gym light caught the corner of the old photo her and Darnell after a 10-round war, smiles carved into sweat. She looked at it just once, then looked away. Mason still hadn't moved. He stood like the room had shifted its gravity. Callie stepped down from the ring with no trainer to help her. No towel boy. No water bottle. Just her and the sound of rubber soles on wood. She walked past the first row, past the live stream crew, past Vince, who had nothing left to say. She didn't smirk. She didn't lift her chin. She didn't need to. She had come to remind them. One punch, one angle, one step that looked like grace but hit like history. The chat finally caught up. Comments came slow, confused. Some used her name, some didn't. A few typed in all caps. Most didn't type at all. Tyson sat upright, finally holding the middle rope with both hands. He looked toward her corner, dazed, unsure of what had happened. The ref knelt beside him and asked something off mic. Tyson nodded once, still breathing heavy. The livestream zoomed out wide, catching both corners and the dead space in between. The shot looked like a before and after photograph with only one subject in focus. A single viewer typed, "She folded him with a whisper." Another wrote, "Ghost step." The name stuck. Callie sat on the bench in the corner, resting her forearms on her thighs. Her gloves were still on. Her towel stayed across her lap. She wasn't out of breath. Mason walked toward the ring, slow, unsure. Each step was too careful, too heavy. He reached the apron and paused, one hand on the rope. Callie didn't look up. She removed one glove, peeled the tape with her thumb, and placed it beside her. Then the other. Then the towel. She stood and turned away. Mason didn't speak. He couldn't. The gym was quieter than it had ever been. Not because someone asked it to be, but because no one knew how to fill what had just happened. Tyson sat alone in his corner, not angry, not even embarrassed, just stunned. The ref marked the decision on the card. The ring announcer never read it out loud. He just looked at it and shook his head. Callie reached her bag, zipped it once, and shouldered the strap. She didn't rush. She didn't wave. She walked toward the back corridor like nothing had changed. But everything had. The locker room was quiet except for the sound of tape peeling from skin. Callie sat on the bench farthest from the door, elbows on her knees, her head lowered in focus. Her gloves were lined up beside her palms in laces tucked. The towel lay folded across her lap, squared at the edges. She unwound the wrap on her left hand with practiced fingers, layer by layer. Her knuckles were red but not swollen. There was no sign of celebration, no urgency, just routine. The gym outside was still buzzing, but in here the air felt still. She was calm, slower than before the quiet after a storm. The light above her bench flickered softly, then steadied. She didn't look up. The door creaked open. Footsteps came in, slow, unsure. Mason didn't say anything at first. He stood there like he wasn't sure he belonged. His eyes landed on the gloves, then on the towel, then on the photo tucked into her open duffel. His father's handwriting was faint on the back in red marker. He hadn't known she carried it. Not every day. He stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "You knew him better than I did," he said. His voice was steady but low. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Callie finished unwrapping her wrist and set the wrap down beside the gloves. She didn't turn around. "Because he said you wouldn't believe it until you saw it." The words hung there without echo. Mason blinked once and looked away. His arms stayed at his sides. He sat down on the bench across from her. The space between them was small, but full. He looked at her hands, at the quiet strength still there. "He used to talk about you," Mason said, "but not like this. He made it sound like you'd stopped." Callie folded the towel again, even though it didn't need folding. "I did stop," she said. "For a while." Mason looked at the photo again, the one of her and Darnell after a fight. She was younger, blood on her lip smile halfway there. Darnell looked proud in a way Mason had never seen in person. "He was different with you," Mason said. His voice cracked just enough to notice. "With me, it always felt like I had to measure up to something invisible." She nodded once, small and slow. "That's why I stayed." He rubbed his hands together, nervous now. "I thought you were just being quiet to be polite. I didn't think you were holding something back." "I wasn't," she said. "I just didn't want to fight for a room. I wanted you to see it." He looked down at the gloves, then picked one up. It was smaller than his softer at the edges and smelled faintly of resin and leather. He turned it over in his hands like he was reading something written on the surface. "You fought like that all the time?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the duffel. Not always. But when it mattered, yes. He set the glove back down gently. His eyes flicked to her hands again, then back to her face. "You could have told me." Callie looked at him finally. Her eyes weren't hard, just quiet. "You weren't ready to hear it." A pause settled between them. He didn't push. She didn't fill the space. She reached down and pulled out the photo, handing it to him without a word. He looked at it longer this time. Really looked. "She made me promise," she said. "If you ever stopped listening, I had to remind you. But I couldn't make you see it until you were ready." Mason turned the photo over and traced the writing with his thumb. The ink was smudged. The words still held. "I think I hated how much I looked like him," Mason said. "I wanted to be someone different. But now, I don't know." Callie leaned back slightly, resting her arms on her knees. "You don't have to be him," she said. "You just have to carry what he left." He looked at her again, and this time his expression softened. "That what you did?" She gave the smallest nod. "Every day." He nodded slowly, the realization sinking in like water through cloth. Then he reached down and realigned her gloves so the palms faced out. It wasn't much, but it was something. They sat in silence again. This time it didn't feel empty. It felt full. Outside, someone called for lights out. The hallway echoed with footsteps and low voices. Neither of them moved. When Mason finally stood, he left the photo where it was. He didn't take it with him. He didn't need to. Callie didn't watch him leave. She picked up the gloves, placed them into the bag, and zipped it shut. Then she sat still for a while longer, the towel still folded on her lap. The video hit 4 million views in 48 hours. The title read, "The Woman Who Made a Giant Vanish." It was clipped, slowed, captioned, and reposted in every language the sport knew. But Callie never commented. She didn't appear in interviews, didn't take phone calls, didn't follow the tags. Her phone stayed in her locker screen, down, notifications off. At Southbridge, nothing changed in the way she moved, but the way people moved around her did. Fighters who once cut in front of her on the way to the bag rack now stepped aside without being asked. When she walked past the sparring ring, gloves lowered. The laughter dipped. The quiet followed. She still taped wrists in the same order. Right hand first, thumb tight, wrist wrap smoothed down twice, then looped. She didn't speak more than she used to. But when she did, they listened, even the ones who used to look past her. Mason came back 2 days after the fight, same gear, same walk, but something different in his eyes. He stood in front of her with gloves untied and waited. She nodded once and reached for the tape. He didn't flinch when she corrected his elbow placement. He didn't roll his eyes when she shifted his stance during pad work. He didn't say thank you. but he didn't need to. His punches were cleaner now, not harder, just placed better. He hit with control instead of fire. When they finished the session, he stayed behind and coiled the extension cord neatly. He didn't leave until every glove was hung. Callie didn't tell him to do it. The other fighters noticed. They didn't say it out loud, but the tone had changed. The ones who used to joke about her now spoke with caution, like they were remembering something important. Vince kept quiet. He hadn't looked her in the eye since the match. He passed her in the hallway, once slowed like he might speak, then kept walking. The towel stayed folded on the ring post, same as always, but someone had hung a small brass hook for it now. No one said who did it. At the front of the gym above the whiteboard, the old photo of Callie and Darnell had been dusted clean. The frame had been replaced. A new border, simple wood, no glare. Beneath the photo, someone had written a quote in block letters. It said, "Legacy isn't about who sees you. It's about who remembers how you moved." She didn't ask who wrote it. She didn't have to. Mason hit the heavy bag with even rhythm, his breath steady, his footwork sharp. She stood behind him, adjusting his back heel, then his shoulder tilt. He listened without looking. A few feet away, a live stream crew was setting up a new corner rig. One of them asked, "You think she'll do another fight?" The other answered, "She doesn't need to. She already passed the title on." Commentators debated it online. One called her the most efficient fighter they'd ever seen. Another said she reminded them of the ones who used to fight before the cameras came. She could have been a world champ, one said on the main feed, but the room already knew better. She didn't need the belt. She had given it away without asking for applause. She handed it off in movement, not metal, and the person who caught it finally knew what it meant to carry. No speech followed. No documentary crew arrived. Just another Tuesday at Southbridge. The speed bag rattled against the wall. Chalk dust hung in the air. The lights buzzed overhead like always. At the far end of the gym, Callie adjusted Mason's wrist as he struck the bag again. He didn't need her hand on his shoulder, but it was there anyway. Above them, the photo stayed framed and level. Her shadow stretched long across the mat, but her steps stayed light as she moved to the next station. She never raised her voice. She never chased the spotlight. But in one moment, one quiet, perfect step, she reminded the world that strength is not always loud. This is the story of a woman dismissed, doubted, and overlooked, who chose to fight not for fame but for someone else's belief. She carried legacy in her silence and taught those around her that real pride does not demand to be seen. It only asks to be earned. Through stillness, patience, and unshaken purpose, she did not just win a fight. She restored a name. She restored a son. And she walked away not needing anyone to cheer, only knowing that now they understood. If this story moved you, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe in quiet strength, follow us for more stories that speak softly but land clean.